boys and girls, stray animals. Welcome to this week's final ever episode, broadcast from Westminster Central Hall. Are we celebrating the summer of this week love, or are we in mourning? Please welcome your host, Andrew Neil.
Evening all. Welcome to This Week. For over 16 years, the late-night graveyard for penetrating political discourse. Remember it? In the early months of 2003, we opined wisely on the success of the Anglo-American invasion of Iraq. We didn't warn you of the disasters to follow. We charted the demise of Call Me Tony and welcomed the premiership of the Brune. We won't make that mistake again. Of course, we had no idea a great crash was coming in 2008, but when it did, we were confident of its causes and consequences. So confident, it was almost as if we knew what we were talking about. Of course, we hadn't a clue. We were pretty sure the Tories would win the 2010 election. They'd produce a hung parliament. We forecast the 2015 election would result in another coalition. The Tories won an overall majority. We did not in a month of Sundays foresee Jezza, the magic grandpa, becoming leader of the Labour Party. I mean, the Maybot was barely on our radar either. But we did foresee her coasting to victory in the 2017 election, even as it became clear her campaign was being run by the gang that couldn't shoot straight. Naturally, she lost her majority. Only 6 months ago, we were telling you that Bojo the Clown wouldn't even make it into the final two in any Tory leadership contest. Yep, that pretty much stood the test of time. But we did get Trump and Brexit right. Actually, we didn't. And some of you are still wondering why we're being taken off the air. For a casting pod. A casting pod. What's a casting pod? I have no idea. Speaking of those who can't tell wrong from right, and for whom prescience is the capital of Nebraska, I'm joined on the sofa tonight by four pundits whose prophecies, perambulations, and peregrinations have made Mystic Meg look reliable, and Molly the dog sound wise. I speak, of course, of Michael #Choo-Choo-Portillo, Alan #Sadman on the left, Johnson, Miranda #She's lovely, Green, and look what Molly's dragged in. Piers #He's naughty, Morgan. And of course, Molly the dog. Michael, your moment of the year.
Well, my memory is not what it used to be, so I'm going to go for a moment of the last week, which was Donald Trump's tweets urging certain Democratic Congresswomen to go back to where they came from. And I reflected that, 16 and a half years ago, it was President George W. Bush who was in the White House. And he was not Abraham Lincoln. And he did lead us into the war in Iraq. But he was, by comparison with Donald Trump, a towering figure. And I just think that these tweets have reduced political discourse to a new low. And I think they are the politics of the future, because sadly they're quite effective. It looks like Trump has shored up his base with these remarks. And if we're thinking about what's changed in 16 and a half years, none of us could have predicted the depths to which political debate has sunk.
Well, he told... He told 3 of the congresswomen to go back to where their parents came from. Does that mean that he has to go back to Scotland?
Please
Because I think the
not.
Scots should be told if that's the case.
Please not.
Maybe his wife will have to go back to Eastern Europe as well. Alan.
3 moments, which are the
3 moments? Jeez, this is inflation.
They're the 3 meaningful votes. January the 15th, March the 12th, March the 29th. And Theresa May, you know, politics is the art of persuasion. Theresa May doesn't have 1 iota of persuasion in her body. But she did go from losing the first one by 230 votes, a record in Parliament, to losing the last one by 58 votes. I think it's the moment of the year because I think that's the only deal in town. And in some way that's going to come back looking not too different to what it did when it was defeated. And I think if Parliament's got any sense, they'll go for that because I see it as the only way out of the
Get it out the way.
Get it out of the way.
I agree with that.
We shall see. Sounds like Groundhog Day to me. Piers, your moment of the year.
Well, 2. One is this moment, which I think is an incredibly sad moment, and I mean that. I've been watching you from the very start. I think it's the best political show on television in this country. But the good news is I start on Monday. Didn't get that down so well. Now, my moment of the week, of the year, is England winning the World Cup.
What a game.
Oh, yeah.
What a game.
Amazing game. And the reason I like it is actually for other reasons, not just the amazing cricket, the greatest cricket match ever played. And I was there, it was amazing and everything else. But as I watched that team celebrate, it really struck me that in the week that President Trump came out with these outrageous racist remarks, let's call them what they were, in telling people who are American citizens to go back where they come from. If you'd done that to that England cricket team, you'd have had about 4 players left. So we had two South Africans. We had Ben Stokes from New Zealand. Owen Morgan is Irish, the captain. You've got 2 Muslims, Moeen Ali and Adil Rashid. They're both from Pakistani heritage. And you go through that team, and it's the most extraordinarily diverse team that the England cricket team's ever had. And it's that team that finally won us the World Cup. So I think as a representation of what this country is really about, that to me was an amazing symbol of what I think England and Britain should really stand for.
Applause for that. Miranda, your moment of the year.
Well, after Alan's 3, mine are a mere 2. The contrasting moments of watching the final stages of Wimbledon, where you had these incredible duels between 2 people forcing the other to raise their game all the time, so the match gets better and better, and you really think, my goodness, what are humans capable of? You know, I'm thinking particularly of Federer, who I adore, and Nadal. And the final as well. And then watching PMQs this week on Wednesday.
Very similar.
And thinking, what is this? This is not combat between people who are bringing each other's game up. It's the absolute opposite. It's total mediocrity and nothing to inspire on either side. And much like Michael, I can't believe we've come to this.
Very well. Now, before we go any further, I'd like to say a word about prestidigitation, double shuffling, honeyfuggling, hornswoggling, and skullduggery. I speak, of course, of the panjandrums of BBC scheduling. Not content with putting us on so late that often we were the lead into breakfast TV, tonight, in a final act of scheduling stupidity, the programme before our final show tonight was about male circumcision. The final cut before our final show. Anyway, I'd like to thank the 3 viewers that made it through to the end of that documentary and are still with us watching now. Interestingly, there's not a male among you. But I digress. A former Labour cabinet minister said to me recently, Andrew, I've lived through some useless governments. He then added, I remember some useless oppositions, but I cannot recall a time when we had a useless government and a useless opposition at the same time. Let's run the film.
Hey, there's Danny with wheels! So this really is it, the end of this week. Hey, is that a Newsnight sticker on your jacket? Are you deserting us?
Well, you know, I've enjoyed the roundups and all the rest of it, but I gotta keep my options open. A guy's gotta eat. You know they mean the world to me, guys. You know you mean the world to me. Hey! Sandy? Sandy?
I borrowed some of Liz's clothes. Thanks, Liz. Tell me about it, stud.
They had rebels multiplying. She was losing control. 'Cause backbenchers were rebelling. It's out of control.
Tories better shape up, 'cause we need a chief.
We need a chief.
To negotiate with EU.
With EU.
Better shape up, better understand.
Better understand.
Or you'll all have to vote Lib Dem.
Nothing left for us to do. What's the Brexit we want? What is the one we want? Honey. Do you agree with me, everyone? What is the one we want? Honey. The trade deals we want? What is the one we want? We negotiate. Oh, yes, indeed. EU filled with frustration, not too shy to convey. Backstop the only direction.
Can we stay?
And leave a shape up.
Seems they found a line
Needed a line.
on a second referendum.
Better shape up.
Claw back the polls.
Go back the polls.
Show that Jezza is the one.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure. Down deep inside.
What's the Brexit we want? What is the one we want? Honey. The agreement we want? What is the one we want? Honey. The trade deals we want? What is the one we want? We negotiate. Oh, yes, indeed.
Honey.
Honey. What's the one that we want?
I mean, you don't get that level of sophisticated analysis on Newsnight, do you? Well, let's be honest, I mean, that's probably why it's still on air. Michael, has Brexit broken British politics?
I don't think we know yet. I think if Brexit is delivered by the end of this year, then probably not. I think if Brexit is delivered by the end of this year, then the Conservative Party probably survives. It fights a general election, it has shot the fox of the Brexit Party, and I would think that Boris Johnson would be able to defeat Jeremy Corbyn. And by the way, I agree with what Alan said earlier, that the way this will happen is actually that a deal almost identical to Mrs May will be pulled out of the drawer and passed. But I think if the Conservative Party does not deliver Brexit by the end of the year, then I don't know how it will stay in power. We slide towards a general election, and both main parties will be massacred by Brexit.
Well, that's the interesting point, Alan, isn't it? Because if Brexit is not delivered in some shape or form, or at least resolved in some way, it could produce a realignment in British politics, couldn't it?
It could, and in a sense, it already is producing a realignment in British politics. But my view is that if there's not this deal by this year, then the whole game changes. I supported Remain I led the Labour Party campaign to remain, which is probably why we lost.
Yeah. Great job you did, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
Leave.
But I believe that referendum result should be honoured. Now, that gets to the stage where if you spent 2 years trying to negotiate it and you're getting nowhere and Johnson can't get anywhere as the new Prime Minister, you're then into a scenario where if it's dropping out without a deal, I'm for remaining. I think the whole ball game changes then, and you'll get people then going back, people who were keen to see the deal done and keen to honour the result of that referendum, thinking, well, crashing out without a deal was never part of this. And I think that then makes the situation far, far worse.
You see, the 2017 election result, in England, it saw the return of two-party politics. Labour and the Conservatives between them got about 85% of the vote. They hadn't had that share for a generation. You look at the polls now, because of Brexit, between them they can barely get 40% of the vote. It has shaken up British politics, the major institutions, in a way that nothing has in recent times.
It's become very tribal. I mean, it's interesting what Michael said there about it will never go back because of social media, predominantly, I think. Someone said a great thing the other day to me, which I thought was very insightful about where we are both in Britain and America, and indeed other countries, which is we've basically regressed back 2,000 years to when we were living in tribes. And you lived in your tribe and you used to all dress the same and you'd have the same ear piercings and you'd do the same things, you have the same attitudes, the same people you talk to day in, day out. And it never deviated. And then eventually we moved out of our tribes and we met other tribes. And they dressed differently and they spoke differently, they had different opinions. And we concluded in our tribe that the only answer to this was to kill the other tribe. And 2,000 years later, we're back in the tribes, aren't we? On social media, it's not really about what's good for the country, it's just about being proven right. I mean, if you look at Alistair Campbell for 10 minutes on Twitter, it's the self-righteousness of he just has to be proven right, even if it's not right. And I think it's the same in America with Trump, and you're either for it or against it completely implacably. And so normal democratic debate and discourse is disappearing. And that, to me, is the most dangerous thing about all this. We've got to get back to a position where we can sit across each other, vehemently disagree, but actually respect each other's right to have a different opinion. And if we don't, politics and democracy will basically just implode.
Can we go back to normal? Can we go, even if Brexit is resolved in some way, will British politics go back to where they've been, or are they now changed irrevocably? They're just going to be different from now on?
I think it will be different, and I think a lot of that is to do with Brexit and with the tensions inside the big two parties. I also agree with Piers and Michael that the sort of age in which we live makes it difficult to go back to a different sort of political conversation. But actually, I think that the financial crash in 2008 has changed as much as Brexit has. You know, it's uncovered such discontent with the kind of economic settlement and with the deal that people feel they've got.
And it still has an impact now. It's had a long tail.
Huge, really long tail. I think that's the most significant thing that we've seen, rather than the Brexit vote, actually. But I think in terms of our party politics, I think we now have a left and a right in this country, you know, more like European politics. And putting all those people from the left and the right back into the Labour Party and the Conservative Party, I think it's going to be almost impossible. I understand what Michael says, that if you get Brexit through, you disable Nigel Farage, but I think you've still got a right wing now in the UK, which is sort of empowered, and that does worry me.
I mean, if Labour becomes the party of Remain, doesn't that bust or burst the Lib Dems bubble?
It could do, but the Labour Party are very, very late to the party on this.
And they've not quite made it.
They've not quite made it yet, exactly. They're still sort of on the doorstep.
A lot of Labour voters want to Brexit. I mean, let's not forget that. So this idea that Labour can suddenly, having repeatedly promised to deliver the result of the referendum, before we even try to do that, they pivot back to saying, actually, we're going to stop it happening. I think you'd have a huge, particularly in the north of England, you would have a huge reaction.
That will be a realignment. You would get then, as Labour becomes more the party of the metropolitan areas and of the white-collar class.
But that's the end of the Labour Party as we know it, isn't it?
Sure, it's a different
Labour
Labour
If the Labour
Party.
Party gives up on its heartland in the north, it's not the Labour Party anymore, I don't think.
Liverpool voted to remain.
Yes.
Leeds voted to remain. Manchester voted to remain.
But these are the metropolitan areas.
Yes, that's true, but you see
the smaller
you see the
towns
same in
areas.
the south, the metropolitan areas compared to rural
There are
areas.
vast swathes of the north that voted Brexit who are Labour voters. I think there would be a massive reaction to any attempt by the Labour Party to now pretend this referendum never happened.
On this last ever programme, may I disagree with Miranda for possibly the first time? I don't think that we've moved to the right and the left. I think there is an asymmetry in the politics. The Labour Party has clearly, under Jeremy Corbyn, moved to the left, although there's massive discontent in the parliamentary Labour Party about that movement. In the Conservative Party, the hardline Brexiteers are described as right-wing. There's no particular reason why they should be thought of as right-wing. It's not a particularly right-wing position. But otherwise, I don't see any evidence of the right in politics. I don't see any right-wing economic policies in the Conservative Party. I actually see lots of centrist and even quite socialist social policies in the Conservative Party. And that's why I think the Conservative Party has more of a chance of bouncing back than you might think, because actually it hasn't set off to the far right. Brexit is an exception amongst its positions rather than an indicator of its general disposition.
Did the Maybot achieve anything in her 3 years in Downing Street?
Absolutely nothing. I mean, I don't say that lightly. I think she was the worst Prime Minister we've ever had. And her speech...
But worse than Lord North, he lost the colonies.
I think she was a disaster because the moment she got it... I mean, it was always a disaster to me that the Prime Minister charged with delivering Brexit was a Remainer and that Parliament was three-quarters Remain. So immediately, there's the problem. I don't think Theresa May's heart's ever been in this. I think she's a terrible negotiator. I think the fact we weren't planning properly for no deal was a catastrophic negotiating mistake. In any big business deal, the one thing you plan for was walking away. We now know from the EU yesterday that actually we never even indicated to them.
Michel Barnier said that.
Absolutely astonishing that the guys running the negotiating table for the EU said we never even raised the spectre of walking away. I mean, what kind of negotiation has been going on here?
And just to remind people, Piers, I'm pretty sure you voted Remain, didn't you?
I voted Remain.
And yet you make this point.
Well, I share Alan's view of this, which is I voted Remain. But you know, if you voted in a general election, you vote for a government, and we were talking about this earlier, every party in every election tells whoppers, which they don't deliver, right? This idea that suddenly everything has to be sacrosanct and held, that's not how the reality works. But we have an option. If a government fails to deliver on its promises, and it fails generally, then we kick them out and we try somebody else. We haven't even tried Brexit. And my argument, if I was a Brexit voter, I'd be like, well, you've got to at least try. You can't just, as the Labour Party now indicating, just simply put your fingers in your ears and say this never happened.
Did she achieve anything in 3 years in Downing Street?
No, it's been extremely disappointing, to say the least. And I thought her final speech, where she sort of tried to say that she was very worried about the state of politics when she's been in charge for 3 years, was really, really, really pushing it, actually.
First bit of self-awareness from the Prime Minister in a long time.
Stunning lack of self-awareness.
All right, well, she's going. We'll be gone in about a week's time. Jezza the Red is still there. Is it all but over for Jezza the Red?
Oh, I think we've passed peak Corbyn. We've well past peak Corbyn. Actually, I think that result in 2017, a lot of Labour supporters thought we were for Remain, which explains why we did so well in many of those areas. But they were soon came to see that Jeremy has always... Jeremy's not changed his mind on anything since he was about 15. So he, so he hasn't got that... So this is... It's actually a serious point. He looks at events and sort of puts them into his rigid thought pattern that's very ideological. He doesn't look at events and have the flexibility to kind of wrap around what should happen next. So he's in a total state of disarray. We're talking about what line should he take on Brexit. I mean, Jeremy, just is incapable of that kind of leadership. I think we passed Pete Corbyn. So I think, being led by the Islington correspondent of the Morning Star has not done as much good. But I think the cult that he represents is still there. and it's still out to deselect Labour MPs that don't agree with them, and it's still fighting its old, Stalinist battles internally. So I hate to be pessimistic. I can't see any end to this soon.
We think we know who the next Tory leader will be, and therefore the next Prime Minister. Who should the next Labour leader be?
Well, it's a very interesting question, because at the moment, Boris Johnson, despite all the noise around him, the fact he's getting all the noise will help it. This country wants someone to bring this Brexit to a resolution, somehow. I think most people do, outside of the Westminster bubble. They want this done. Boris has got a good chance, for the reasons Michael laid out, I think, to actually get a pretty similar version to Theresa's May deal through, in which case he'll be a hero. And if he can convert the optimism around actually getting it done into other stuff, bringing police back to the streets and all the hot button things that he's hit.
But who should the next Labour leader be?
But here's the interesting point. Well, here's my point.
I know who the next Tory leader is.
Eventually coming to the answer to your question, which is this. If it doesn't work the way Michael says, and he can't get a deal done, then he tries for no deal. That's going to get blocked by Parliament. He has to go for a general election, presumably. And at that stage, the real question for the Labour Party is, if Corbyn's still in power, I think Boris wipes the floor with him. If by then the Labour Party have managed to get rid of Corbyn and they bring in a Keir Starmer, they bring in somebody like that, a Tom Watson, somebody who's just a little bit more reasonable, and a little bit more electable, then it gets, I think, very interesting in that election, particularly if Boris is by then seemed to have failed to deliver Brexit as he promised.
Let me just go around very quickly in our final minute in this segment. Will Brexit in some way have happened by the end of this year, Michael?
I believe it will.
Alan?
Yes, I believe it will.
Miranda?
Yes.
No.
3-1. 3-1. There we go. Now, who will be the next leader of the Tory party has been playing on the mind of Choo-Choo Portillo here. Not for the first time, I can tell you. Though this time he didn't install 40 phones like the last time. But I fear that the prospect of Bojo the Clown has just pushed him over the edge. Viewers of a sensitive disposition should look away now, seriously.
Look at me, I'm John McGee. We'll be the Remain Party. Red under the bed, just a norm if I let. Trust me, I'm John McGee. What shit, hey, I'm nice CJ. Brought up in the proper way. I'll get a deal that will broadly appeal. I'm not continuity, May. Don't do drugs, they swear. They don't have a care. They get ill from one cigarette. Ho ha! Take your filthy paws off my silky drawers. Would you pull that crap wearing a rosette? As for you, Joannie Pooh, I know what you wanna do. Bollocks to Brexit, making us a cesspit. Voters form an orderly queue. Barris, let me be. Keep the pelvis far from me. Crash out with no deal, rebels in no appeal. Hey, Fungo, you're in the lead.
You will understand why I've moved down here. It's safer than sitting up here. Now, at this stage, I wanted to speak to Diane Abbott. We thought she was, or as they say in Dead Ringers, Diane Abbott! We thought she was coming down. I wanted to ask her if she was preparing for government, and then to ask her of which country. But she's not here, so we can't do that at all. But we've got Liz is here, Liz Kendall. Liz, this is your final. Liz Kendall, ladies and gentlemen. Liz Kendall. Liz, this is your final chance to tell us, after I've asked you about 20 times, what do you really think of Jezza the Red?
What do I think of Jezza the Red?
Come on, it's hardly a new question.
I wish the result in 2015 in the Labour leadership election had been different. That's what I do.
That doesn't tell me the answer to the question.
Well, I hope he comes out strongly for Remain. I'm in a different position from Caroline here and Alan up there. I'd like to see the public given the final say on Brexit, and I think if Jeremy Corbyn and the rest of the Shadow come out strongly for saying we think there should be a public vote, I think it'll be good for the Labour Party.
You're just not going to tell me, are you?
I always try and be as straight as I can, Andrew.
Yeah, it's like a squiggly line. John Nicholson, another great friend of the
I always
program.
try and be as straight as I can as well.
You must have been cheering your head off on Sunday as England won the World Cup.
Wasn't it moving? It was fabulous. It was really.
Did you watch
really
it?
Great. I saw the highlights of it. I've never been very.
So you didn't watch it, did you?
Listen, as a newscaster, I learned there's one question you ask when you're doing interviews in cricket: has England done enough to avoid the follow-on? I've no idea what it means, but I know if you ask that question, cricketers always look excited.
Now, are you coming back into politics? You're going to stand you lost your seat at the last election. It's now by Joe Swinson. Who could be are you going to fight that seat again? We're going to see you again, or are you going to get a proper job?
I haven't decided, is the honest answer. I loved being an MP. I found it a very satisfying job. You can get lots of really good things done. I was always a bit worried about following party discipline, because I thought as a journalist that would be a difficult thing to do. But in the end, I found I agreed with the things I voted for. And
that's unusual.
It is unusual, but
It'll never catch on.
I found that I did, and I found that you can do good things. I introduced a bill that I was proud of. So I haven't decided to answer your question in a straight way.
Good. It took a while, but we got there. Don't worry, I'm going to live forever, so I could hang around. Simon McCoy, who did such a great job on This Week a couple of weeks ago. Great job. We thought we were grooming you to take over from me. What happened?
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I don't know why they've done what they've done.
Did you not send that money I told you to the Director General's bank account in the Cayman Islands?
We had to get you out of a certain bar, didn't we? And that took a lot of money.
Really?
I kept Molly fed, that was the main thing.
Very well. Well, that's good. We're glad about that. Now, where is Benedict Pavio? We saw her. Where is she? She's right here. Here you are. Here's the big question for you, Benedicta. Who do you love more, Emmanuel Macron or Michel Barnier?
We would say in French, mon cœur balance entre les deux. My heart is torn between them.
Oh, really? Double dating?
No dating involved, no.
No? Mr. Macron going to survive all right, do you think?
Yeah.
That doesn't sound very confident.
Yes, I think he is.
Yes? So you're going to handle the Gilets jaunes?
He's doing his best to. He's got a quite tall order on his hands.
Yeah. Have you ever met a Gilets jaune?
No, I haven't. I've met Monsieur Macron. In fact, I can tell you...
Oh, you met Mr. Macron, but not a Gilets jaune?
Hold on. Mr. Macron was here for in this very hall, and I remember him pacing the stage with no notes, and it was that enthusiasm in the hall.
He was pacing the stage looking for his notes.
No, he didn't. No, he's a man who actually doesn't need... No, it might sound good, but he doesn't need notes, actually.
No, he doesn't?
No.
You're wasted as a journalist. You should be working in the Elysee for Mr. Macron. Rory Bremner, ladies and gentlemen. Rory Bremner. Great to see you. So, Rory, Donald Trump in the White House, Bojo the Clown in Downing Street. I mean, it just doesn't get better for you, does it?
Well, people talk about WTO rules. This is WTF rules, isn't it, really? I mean, it just... Let me, I am not going to answer your question. Let me pay tribute. I think it is the sign of a genius to get out where the going is good. And I think we've never had it so good. The pound is at an all-time high. We are about to see B-Day. I am about to ascend the throne, and the Titanic will steam proudly towards the iceberg. So I think we're...
But what are you going to do about paragraph 5C?
Oh, yeah. That is a detail. That is a detail. As you know, I will be the greatest prime minister since Boner Law. I may be more Boner than Law, but let me make it clear. I think it's going to be great. But I want to say, Piers, you spoke for me, as you've done many, many times. I think it's a tragedy. I think it's very bad. I think it's a big mistake. They're getting rid of you. I think you're a great ambassador for the BBC, and I think your country needs ambassadors, right? Okay? So there we go. There's a job. There's their vacancy.
Rory Bremner. Can you buy shares in Rory Bremner? Because I'd like to buy a few with these two in
They're going
power.
very well. They're going very bigly now.
Bigly? Bigly? Very well. Tim Marshall, who has appeared on many this week, talking of world affairs. Great to see you, Tim.
Thank you, Andrew.
Are we all doomed? Are we doomed?
Not until Captain Mainwaring sings. No, we're not doomed. You're a man of the Kirk. You'll know Book of Revelations says at the end of this week comes the end of days, but it's simply not true. We've been going to hell in a handcart for more than 16 years. We haven't got there yet. That's not where we're going.
There we go. A cheery note to end on from some of the people who have appeared in this week. Let's have some music now, ladies and gentlemen. Let's hear from Quiet Man.
It's all the same when I tell you my name, just like we did it before. 'Cause I know we changed, but the reasons remain. So smile and open the door. I see something you don't know.
I see something you don't
about
know.
yourself.
About yourself.
Let me tell you that I see something beautiful.
I see something beautiful.
Like no one else. Like no one else. Lay me down. Come save me now and lay me down. Won't you just come save me now? Two-step, then you step. I jump from that cliff edge just to break your fall. 'Cause I live with regret, it's part of my mindset. A thick smoke and alcohol. I think you need something new.
I think you need something
to calm me down.
To calm me down.
Let me tell you that I think I need something too.
I think you need something.
I'll show you how. I'll show you how. Lay me down. Come save me now and lay me down. Won't you just come save me now?
Quiet Man, ladies and gentlemen, Quiet Man.
Thank you very much.
And ladies and gentlemen, we have two other very special guests. They're all special, but we've got Mick Hucknall from Simply Red there. And the world's greatest hypnotist, don't look into his eyes, Paul McKenna. Now, for the past 16 years, British foreign policy has been dominated by two issues, the Middle East and Brexit. We invaded and occupied Iraq, shambles. We intervened in but did not occupy Libya, shambles. We did not intervene, invade or occupy Syria, shambles. 3 years ago, we voted to leave the EU, shambles. The more astute among you will by now have discerned a trend. And I've not even mentioned Donald Trump.
Hey, come on, Danny. What do they get up to at Lulu's after the show?
Nah.
Come on!
Yeah, tell us, Danny.
Is it true Michael requests Lord of the Dance as the last song every week?
Geez, guys, it's not like you think.
Come on, what do you guys talk about?
So, what do you do at all those Lulu after parties, Sandy?
Ooh, tell us. Oh, well, mainly I just sit at the bar with a nice glass of Blue Nun. Just the one, mind.
Really? But What about all those rumours of Michael dressing up as Margaret Thatcher and reading the Grantham Line train timetable in Cantonese?
Oh, no, it's not like that at all. We just talk.
Yeah, come on, yeah, come on.
Oh, guys, you don't want to hear all the gory details, do you?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, okay then. Summer visit had me a blast.
Summer banquet happened so fast.
Met the queen, auto chemistry.
Met a boy, orange as can be.
Dignity, drifting away. Ooh, make stronger our bonds. Oh, well. Tell me more, tell me more.
Can I buy the NHS?
Tell me more, tell me more. Did his small hands impress?
Mueller report gave me a cramp.
Russia supported POTUS Trump's camp.
China Xi would prefer Trump was brown.
Trump showed off, splashing sanctions around.
Summer sun sounds like fun.
But, oh, it's just climate change.
Oh, well.
Tell me more. Has she got Hong Kong inside?
Tell me more. Did she put up a fight?
Financial strategy from the arcade.
IMF warning about war on trade.
G20 running amok.
Can global markets handle the shock?
Pound rating, insecure thing. Oh, for you I'm freighting. Oh.
Tell me more. But on Saudi, don't brag.
Tell me more.
Because they sound like a drag.
Europe got friendly, expanding Eurozone.
Schengen allowed more immigration.
Macron's not sweet with protests in France.
Merkel was good, Greens got put a chance. Summer heat, Juncker may meet.
But, all those EU summits. Tell me more. Might we still make amends?
Tell me more. Couldn't they get early friends?
It turned colder, that's where it ends.
So we told Juncker we'd still be friends.
Customs union caused such a row.
Wonder what will become of us now. Global dreams ripped at the seams. But, oh, those EU summits.
It's another BAFTA. I mean, I can just see it on the mantelpiece along with all the... Oh, no, we haven't got any BAFTA, sorry. Will the EU be better off without us, Michael?
No, I don't think the EU will be better off without us. And the one thing that I hoped that might happen was that the EU might think about its direction, that it might think about whether federalising was such a good idea, might think about how it could make itself more accountable and democratic. But there's absolutely no sign that any of that is going to happen. Indeed, the removal of the British brake seems, if anything, likely to accelerate the process towards this integration. And you had this conversation, I think, a couple of weeks ago with Benedict, who's now in the audience. The selection of the new officers of the European Union, and one must say the selection, not election, another federalist president of the European Commission, a lady who not only believes in a United States of Europe, but a single European set of armed forces. I mean, all this suggests that nothing has been learnt from the populist movements of Europe including, if you like, the Brexit in this country. So no, I don't think the EU's better off without us, and I don't think we've managed to stop the worst things happening.
But Brussels has succeeded, I would suggest, Miranda, in one important thing in these negotiations. One of its strategic goals was to make it so difficult and so unpleasant for Britain to leave that nobody else would follow us. And I think you could say on that, job done.
Yes. Well, it's true that the last 3 years are not a very good advertisement for leaving the EU.
No, and even the more extreme Eurosceptics, Salvini in Rome, Le Pen in Paris, Orban in Hungary,
That's right,
none of them are saying that they're all Eurosceptic, but they're not even saying they want to leave the euro. In the case of Italy and Le Pen, never mind leave the EU.
That's true, but you know, your original question was, will the EU be better off without us? And I think that's a strong no, because actually, inside the EU, number one, we had a really good deal. We were not part of the single currency. We were not part of the Schengen borderless agreement. We actually were mostly in with one foot out, which suited us quite well. After the referendum, we could have found a solution where we were mostly out with one foot in, to our advantage and to Europe's advantage, because actually the British voice in favour of things like liberalising trade and against integration where it's not appropriate was an important voice. Other nations in Europe relied on us to bulwark those arguments, you know, the Dutch, the Scandies, and actually Brexit could have been a moment to rethink a lot of other European relationships, I think, and then I would hope, actually, eventually, in 25 years' time, that is where we will end up, actually, is on some sort of outer ring with other countries who don't want to be part of an integrationist core, which is not what all of Europe wants.
But in or out, Alan, it's important for us that Europe's a success. It's going to be our biggest market for a long time to come. And here's the problem. The Eurozone has been teetering on recession for most of this year. Mr. Macron has his problems, as I was speaking with Benedict there on the home front. Chancellor Merkel is in the departure lounge now. Who's going to run Europe? Who's going to give Europe the direction it requires?
Well, it certainly won't be us, but can I just point out to you that during this year, the European Union has reached trade deals with Japan, huge deal, with Vietnam, which they've worked on for a long time, and with the so-called Mercosur countries, which includes Argentina and Brazil. These are huge trade deals. Liam Fox is scrambling around trying to keep us in the deals we've already got, and he now has 3 more deals that he wants to try to keep us in, because we're actually part of those deals. So the EU has carried on getting the trade deals that we were told were impossible. They've got those trade deals. We benefit from them. Now, whoever leads, Andrew, I think those days of a single army, of ever closer union, they disappeared when those countries came in from Eastern Europe. It changed the whole ballgame in Europe, because they, like us, want nothing to do with that, a federal Europe. Okay. So it's not going to happen.
But may I just ask you, I mean,
they will miss us.
That's a very, very
they will miss us.
That's a very interesting point. But if you're right, why is it that it is absolutely de rigueur that the new president of the European Commission go on talking this nonsense about the United States of Europe, about having a single set of armed forces? Why would they go on saying that if you're right, that this idea has passed?
People say all kinds of strange things. We don't have to listen to our politicians to know that. The fact is, it just isn't going to happen. The numbers aren't there. It changed when we had the accession countries coming in, and there was no going back from that.
Piers, has populism peaked on both sides of the Atlantic? I mean, it did well in the European elections, the populist parties of the right, but not great. Just a little bit better than before. Has it peaked, or does it still have some way to go?
No, it hasn't peaked at all. In fact, I would lay even money that Donald Trump, despite all this nonsense this week, dangerous nonsense, I think he'll get re-elected quite easily, because the Democrats at the moment are falling into his trap. And his trap is to make the faces of the Democrat Party over there to be these 4 young firebrand socialists. Well, if that's the face of the Democratic Party, they will not beat Trump in an election. So I think populism has a way to go. I think that at the core of all this, the core of rising populism, there are many obvious reasons, but the one that people don't talk about enough to me is the rise of political correctness driven by social media, the snowflake brigade. And I think it is driving resentment amongst the silent majorities in many countries, in America, in Britain. And I just sense all the time that Twitter, in particular, thinks is right about all this stuff, and they wake up to these shocks. They wake up to President Trump. They wake up to Brexit, and they don't know how this has happened because their echo chamber has told them constantly that all their PC views, their virtue signaling stuff, is all what most people are thinking.
Miranda,
it's not. It's just not.
Well, I think it's true that we are starting to import some of the US's culture wars and only being able to see politics and understand politics through this kind of very divisive stuff as to where are you on these two sides. But actually, that's not why people are attracted to populists, and that's not why populist movements are being successful. They're successful because people think they've got a bad deal. And it's the responsibility of sensible politics to give people the sense that they have got a better deal and that their lives are improving. And I actually think that we don't want to import the US culture wars.
Well, we are importing it, and it's infecting
Well,
every
we can-
part
we
of
can
our
resist.
culture now.
We can resist
I mean,
because we
we
can-
start no platforming people like Jordan Peterson, for example, at Cambridge. It's an absolute disgrace that somebody with that mind who just would like to debate interesting stuff is not even allowed to be on a platform to debate stuff.
People care about the things they've all cared about.
Social media gives populism an outlet. But I would suggest to you there are much more fundamental matters at work. Miranda says people are populist or angry because they feel they've had a raw deal. Well, they're right. A lot of people have had a raw deal. Average wages in this country are still not as high as they were in 2008. We've had over a decade of wage stagnation. Yes. There's been a huge move in our GDP from labour to capital. If you own things, you're fine. If you're working for a wage, you're not fine.
Do you not think there'll be a day of reckoning about this Brexit business when it eventually will get sorted? And at that point, everyone who currently has a vested interest, millions of people, a vested interest in this not happening and basically talking down everything about it. At some point, when Brexit actually happens, we're going to have to come together as a country. We're going to have to. And at that point, we're going to have to remind ourselves we are still the 6th biggest economy in the world, and that the EU, many of the countries in the EU, if not almost all of them, have actually been performing at the same level as us or worse. And so at some point, they're going to want our money, they're going to want our trade. And at that point, we're going to need to have killer negotiators in that room who are going to do proper deals very fast. And why should they do it? Because they're going to have a financial imperative to do it, just as we will.
You mentioned President Trump. Who is the Democrat most likely and with the best chance to beat him in 2020?
I would have said Biden may have beaten him last time. I thought he was a better candidate than Hillary Clinton. But this time he looks a little bit old. He looks like he's slightly lost his way, I think. He's being sucked into the squad. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the others, they're sucking the whole party so far left, I think they're making them almost unelectable. Kamala Harris, possibly, is a contender. But if you ask me honestly, where will they be in a few months' time? They're going to be in a position, that party, when they will be desperate for someone that could actually beat Trump. And if you ask me the two names right now who I think could beat him, they would be Michelle Obama or Oprah Winfrey. And one of them, if they could be persuaded, I'm totally serious. Yeah. I think they have the star power. I think they have the television quality that you need to be a candidate these days. I think they have the universal appeal. I think they've got balls of steel.
Would they know how to handle paragraph 5C, though?
Only you know stuff like that, which makes it even more ridiculous that you're leaving, Andrew Neil.
Absolutely.
Alan, as you look around the world, is it becoming a more dangerous place? We know what's been happening in the Gulf. We see the rise of China, particularly in the South China Seas. Or actually, we're at peace, and should we be more optimistic than we usually are?
Well, I'm with Tim Marshall on this, and his best-selling book available in all good bookshops. If you look back,
checks in the post, Tim.
If you look back at what my parents' generation had to face,
yes.
if you look back to the early '60s, you know, I was alive during the Cuban Missile Crisis. You know, when we almost, I think it's over-exaggerated. Incidentally, just while I mention it, I saw someone said yesterday that Boris Johnson is what you'd get if you sent Donald Trump to Eton. And so And so I think I don't think there's going to be any change in that relationship when Boris becomes Prime Minister.
I think you've upset Molly with that suggestion.
I saw that,
She's
yeah.
coming to
She was asleep just now.
Yeah, exactly. Are you? There are lots of dangers in the world. There always are. But should we still be optimistic? Are things getting better, or are there dangerous flashpoints that could happen at any moment?
Well, I mean, both. The things that are getting better all the time are the things that people hardly remark upon, like the decline of global poverty, the rise of a middle class in India, in China, in Southeast Asia, the growing, funnily enough, the growing equality of the world in that respect. But I do think that we lived through an era where the potential of warfare was controlled by treaties. So we installed hotlines, for example, because of the danger of nuclear war. What's happening at the moment is that some activities are being conducted which are very warlike, and they're not governed by any treaties, and there aren't any hotlines, and there's no way of sorting them out. Most amazingly, I was on another program called The Moral Maze, and we had the Chief of the Defence Staff on, and he was asked, are we at war? And I was astonished when his answer was yes. I think it may be an exaggeration, but of course, with China, with Russia, I hope that we are constantly interfering with their IT systems, and they surely are interfering with ours. And this is an entirely unregulated set of activities. And some of these activities could be very dangerous. I mean, you can paralyze each other's electricity system, health services, and so on. And some of that could be very dangerous because it's unregulated.
You mentioned George Bush earlier as a great towering figure compared to Trump. I mean, the one thing I am very encouraged by with Donald Trump is he clearly sees war as bad business.
I agree.
You know, he sees everything as a business deal.
Yeah.
He has factored in that the Middle Eastern wars of the last 20 years in America have been ruinous, absolutely financially ruinous. And so he doesn't believe in war. There's no great ideology behind it. He just thinks it's bad business. I think we should be encouraged by that. Most of Trump's actions on the foreign stage have been to forge peace, not war. We go nuts when he goes and talks to Kim Jong-un or Vladimir Putin or whatever it may be. I like him in the room rather than declaring war, as George Bush did on these places. So, you know, for all his faults, actually, I think on the foreign stage, so far, Trump has been actually, I think, impressive.
Well, we've been on air these past 16 years, Miranda. We've had Iraq, we've had Syria, we've had Libya, we've had terrorist attacks in this country and in our allies, in Europe as well. As we sit here now in the middle of 2019, do things look better than the past we've come from, or are we in for more of the same?
Well, there was that strange bit in the 90s of, you know, what was called the holiday from history, where it was just peace and prosperity, and we used to have political conversations about the details of reforming public services. You know, we're a long way from that. I think you do need to remain optimistic. I feel that in all sorts of ways we'll come back to our senses. But I do worry, I hear what Piers is saying, but I do worry about the way that Trump is sort of working to degrade all of the kind of multilateral ways in which nations
like
cooperate.
NATO,
you know, the UN has become so disempowered in recent years. You know, we're leaving the EU. Actually, a lot of the problems we face require nations to work together. So we do have to try and maintain some sort of architecture, you know, to maintain peace and prosperity.
But a lot of the hysteria that goes on these days...
I think I was quite
I agree.
actually, in my...
It's actually been a very civilised debate all round, but I think the hysteria that goes on...
You're not going to put an end to that, are you?
No. I'm going to make the point. This is what I always say to people.
It'll be our final point.
He's going to erect a straw man, which he does so well.
Pointing what Michael said. The point about the fact that statistically it's the safest time to ever be alive. There are fewer wars than there have ever been in recorded history. It's the healthiest time to ever be alive. It's the time when people are living longer than they've ever lived before. Poverty, real poverty, has been almost halved in the last 30 years. Extraordinary. Diseases are being eradicated. I mean, there are so many great indicators for why right now is the best time to ever be alive. And the only downside, the only negative, is the end of BBC This Week.
The check is in the post.
That is worth hysteria.
End us on a positive note.
End us on a positive note. Well, I thought what Piers said there was absolutely right. And because of the perspectives of television and radio and reporting, it's very hard to get this good news story which is all around us day by day. It's very, very hard to get any perspective on that. And the other happy note I would end on is that this programme has known for about 6 months that it was for the chop. And I think the quality of its output has gone up until the very last programme. Thank you, Piers.
And that's it from us, folks. Not just for tonight, but forever. It really is the end of an era. Oh, sorry, I mean end of an era, no. Thanks to everybody out there who has made this show what it is. A total travesty of public service broadcasting. Nighty-night, don't let the casting pod bite.
Hold on, Andrew, hold on. Just before you disappear forever, we have one final surprise. Don't worry, it's not your best Nick Bob.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Well, Andrew, I'm sure the members of this House concur with the sentiment of this song. Nobody does it better. Makes me feel sad for the rest. Nobody does it half as good as you. Andrew, you're the best. Nobody does it better. Guess some journos wish that they could. Nobody does it quite the way you do. Why you have to be so good? Sing the last one with me. Nobody does it better. Makes me feel sad for the rest. Nobody does it half as good as you. Andrew, you're the
Thank you.
It was the number one from the year that this week started in 2003. It's called Make Love by Room 5, and we hope you enjoy it. Thank you, Andrew, for having us. It's been a wonderful evening. Hope you enjoy. If you want to dance, it seems optimistic, but I'm just going to chuck that into the ether, all right? 'Cause I like to party. I know everybody does. Make love and listen to the music. You got to let yourself go, 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 yeah. Say, I like to party.
I like to party.
Everybody does.
Everybody does.
Make love and listen to the music. You got to let yourself go, 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 go. If you're making your weekend plan, best be in them too. Make love and listen to the music. Yeah! Everybody does. Everybody does. Make love and listen to the music. You've got to get yourself go, 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 yeah. I like to party. I like to party. Everybody does. Everybody does. Make love and listen to the music. You've got to let yourself go, 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 yeah. I say I like to party. I like to party. 'Cause everybody does. Everybody does. Make love and listen to the music. You got to get yourself go, 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 go. I'd like to thank my band for being here. Thank you for having us. Quiet Man. One. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hello, BBC Complaints Department. Yes, madam. Oh, you wish to complain about this week? Oh, them. Right. Well, which episode? Oh, all of them. Right. Yes. And Andrew Neil. Yes. Yes, well, Mr. Neil, too right on. Too lefty. Are you sure? Oh, too right wing. Yes. Yes. Well, Mr. Neil's intention. Well, yes. Yes. Yes, but because of the nature of the programme... Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I am sorry. Mr. Portillo's shirts. Yes, I quite understand. On the source? Well, I think Mr. Portillo... Oh, I'm sorry. Alan Johnson. Yes. Too old? Get rid of it? BBC News needs to be a podcast. Well, madam... But, madam... Yes, but, madam... Oh, piss off.